What up, y'all? It's Monday. We got some Brawlhalla action coming at y'all. Of course, we're going to be talking about esportsy stuff because it is an esportsy Monday. But before we get into that, I'm Duke, and join with me is none other than Sparky, my favorite esportsy guy.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's the call before the brawl. Now, you're going to be wondering, like, where are the normal esports gamers that we expect to see on the esports dev stream? Now, because this is the call before the brawl, you're wondering, like, when is the brawl? Is it around the corner? Is it 3 weeks from now? Is it 6 months down the road? Like, no, it's this weekend. It is in just a few days, the inauguration of the 2024 Brawlhalla esports season is going to begin in less than a week.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I know a lot of people have been, chomping at the bit to get into esports again. I'm sure quite a few of us on the back end are ready for a little bit more time. We could be, taking a little bit longer of a break. But either way,
Not me.
yeah, that's true. But either way, it's going to be exciting. If you're a big fan of Brawlhalla Esports, you're going to want to start off this weekend with Esports Year 2024. Before we get into all that, we got to talk about some World of Brawlhalla stuff. Got to get that goodness out of the way. So some big things going on in the world of Brawlhalla. Of course, you can pick up your Brawlhalla merch like we've talked about. You can get that 7 shirt and crew neck sweatshirt over at brawlhalla.com/merch. Of course, we've got battle pass things going on, and then of course we also want to let y'all know about the community tournaments. We had some community tournaments last weekend. We got some more going on in the month of February. So if you want a good place to practice, highly recommend going and signing up for some of these Brawlhalla community tournaments.
Start.gg/BH community. That is going to be your headquarters for all of those community tournaments. You can see the ones that are currently happening. You can see the ones that are upcoming. And even if you don't absorb all of the information that is on this slide right now, remembering when things are, whether it's a Brawl League tournament, whether it's an Estasal, whether it's a Bearded Brawls, whether it's a Moose Wars, whether it's an InSig, start.gg/BH community. That will always give you almost all, if not all, of the information that you need to either play or watch those tournaments.
Yep, great website to have on hand. And of course, if you're a fan of esports, and you're probably aware of the hard light esports weapon set, you can watch this weekend twitch.tv/Brawlhalla and potentially earn your hard light weapon set. Get that great sword, get those blasters. I know a lot of people are very hyped for that great sword in particular.
Yeah, make sure to watch all of the broadcasts that are happening this weekend. And if you want to know when those broadcasts are happening, you can go to brawlhalla.com/schedule, because the trial of Ymir is coming up right now. You see brawlhalla.com/schedule. It will give you that beautiful calendar. It will give it to you in your time zone, so you don't have to Google anything. You don't have to worry about the Google foo or worrying about any of those difficult decisions and conversions. All you got to worry about is brawlhalla.com/schedule so that you can watch the trial of Ymir. Make sure, because we also have other regions that will be broadcast, not just North America, South America, and EU, but of course we also have the MENA region coming in, so everybody needs to pay attention to all of that so you can make sure that you not only enjoy all of the Brawlhalla action, but you also get all of the viewership points that you need to grab those hard light weapons.
Yes, and of course, we're talking about the trial of Ymir. That's going to be happening this weekend. Are signups still open, Toast?
It says sign up now. I'm going to say it's still open.
Also, if you're... Oh, they are still open. But if you're looking at this and you're like, oh yeah, I need to do that, you're kind of late, and you should probably start, signing up earlier for future events, just saying. But yeah, also want to remind everyone, like Sparky said, MENA is going to be broadcasted this Friday. That is the Middle East North American service. So the first time we're going to get to see
North Africa.
North Africa, yeah. The first time we're going to see that action is going to be this Friday, which will be really, really cool.
Yeah, so make sure to tune in, make sure to play if you want to, and like Foda always says, so I'll go ahead and say it and reiterate it yet again. If you're like, man, I think I'm going to be busy at that time, I'm not sure, maybe I'll sign up later, maybe I'll wait till Wednesday, see what my schedule is for this weekend. No, don't worry about that. Sign up for now, because if you aren't able to make it, don't worry about it. If you can't step foot anywhere near your computer, you can't send a message on Discord or anything like that, don't worry about it. It will take you out of the sign-up process. You will not be penalized. You will not get in trouble. I will not yell at you. Duke will not hunt you down on Twitter and put your face up saying, uh-oh, this guy, don't let this guy come to tournaments anymore because he doesn't show up. No, you don't got to worry about any of that. Sign up if you think there's even a snowball's chance in heck that you might be able to play that weekend. And if you can't, hey, no worries. We'll catch you on the next one.
It's all good. Okay, so let's get into this weekend. Got to talk about the format for those of you who maybe aren't familiar, or you're familiar with esports, but you're like, what is this trial of Ymir? We've never heard of this thing before. I don't really know what's going on.
Am I going to court?
You know, you have to fight against a frost giant. But as you're familiar, if you watch the esports kind of announcement video, the singles events are going to be kind of split this year into the winter circuit and the summer circuit. So starting this weekend will be the February start of the winter circuit, and that all leads up to the Royale in May. Then we'll of course have that mid-season championship in June, and then July kicks off the summer circuit, that second half of the year, which of course goes to its own Royale. So we've got 2 Royales this year, which, you know, it might feel smaller, but we've got more people going to these Royales because we've got 4 from North America, 4 from EU, and 4 from South America. So South America getting a little bit more representation, getting to see what South America can bring to the table when they bring more than just 2 people to an event.
Yeah, that's going to be really exciting. I can't wait to see who makes it out. I think I might already have a little bit of an idea in mind about who might make it out, but of course, like, you know how esports works and you know how my thoughts work. Rarely do the 2 things intermix and intermingle quite friendly. So the Royales, because there are fewer of them, that means they mean more. That means they have more legacy, they have more glory attached to them, because it's not just one tournament that you have to play well in. It is several tournaments that you have to play well in. And I'll circle back to a point I made earlier, just for those out there who are wondering, if you're worried like, oh no, man, I can't play in all of those tournaments. I don't have 4 free weekends this year to dedicate to that. Hey, don't worry about that. We got you covered here, because they take your 3 best placements from those 4 different tournaments. So if you play in the Trial of Ymir, you go lights out, you crush it. Then you go into Frigg and you crush it. Then you go into Baldur, and you maybe in Baldur you have a tough weekend, or you can't make it. No worries. If you come back for Scotty and you crush that one, you might have a chance to make it into the Royale. So don't worry about that. It's kind of like when you have your tests in school, and like if you flunk one test, your teacher will sometimes be like, hey, you know what? I'll take your 3 highest tests, and those will go towards your grades at the end. That's kind of what we're doing here, because Toast and everybody in Brawlhalla Esports, you know, they're essentially the cool teachers. They want to give you the benefit of the doubt, because, you know, people have stuff that comes up.
You gotta go 100% on every test, all right? Well, I came from the household where you got to get all A's. As an all C student, I did not succeed, but that was the goal. But I think it's time to talk about some people to look out for with, of course, the kickoff of the Trial of Ymir. Off season has been interesting, to say the least. We don't know exactly what's been going on unless you've been watching a lot of those community tournaments like we talked about. But let's talk about some names that we're maybe interested to look out for. Sparky, I'll let you kick it off.
Let's start off with everybody's favorite region, the region who won the Brawlhalla World Championship. Let's start off with South America. But first off, we're not going to go right to the golden champion of U's. We're going to start off with someone else. We're going to start with Kaina here. Kaina, who came in 2nd place at BCX, the best hammer player in the entire world, able to play that weapon better than virtually everybody else. He has a heavily winning record against virtually every player in South America, including U's, even after BCX. He is winning against virtually everybody all the time. He has a 61% win rate against U's. But he still got 2nd place at the World Championship. And it was interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think interesting is maybe a little bit of an understatement, considering it was our grand finals set for our World Championship. But Kaina has been kind of showing up for the region. Of course, we've talked about U's obviously as our world champion from South America, but Kaina's been like right alongside him as kind of the big other person that people point to as reasons why South America deserves more credit as a region. He's one of those big things that people look at and are like, you know what, if we've got people like U's, people like Kaina coming out of that region, we want to see what else is coming out of that region. So I think Kaina's got a lot of a spotlight on him. I've talked about this before, but a lot of people look at Kaina as kind of the most notable face of South America in a lot of ways. Like Yuz is kind of a lot more subdued and kind of comes out and is like, everybody's pointing at him. They think he is kind of that big person to look out for South America.
Kind of has the better record in 2023. He has more tournament wins. He has better overall average tournament placements. Just looking back at 2023, there was not a single time except for Autumn Royale that he was not on the podium in an official tournament. The same cannot be said for Yuz.
Yeah, Yuz definitely had some ups and downs last year. Obviously, some really high highs. Anything else we want to talk about with Kaina?
That's all we got with Kaina. I'm gonna move through these pretty quickly because we have a lot of players to cover today.
Okay. Next up, I'm gonna pick off the name of Lorez. Lorez has kind of been rising in the ranks of South American names. Of course, a Royale champion, a Monarch. Did he end up going with the King title? Do you remember?
I do not remember.
I don't remember what title. But either way, Lorez is a very strong player and of course has been kind of one of those big names in South America. Used to be one of those people that people kind of called like the little brother of South America. Like he would be behind some of the other names, and like again, we gotta bring up the fact that he was like a fill for South America in a lot of events because he was just one of the few people from South America who had a passport, but he still would go to these events and he would show up and play, and people were like, okay, I see potential from this Koji player, I see some potential from this Bo player. But Lorez has since grown into his own right. He's shown himself to be an amazing 2v2er in particular. That's what I like to see from Lorez. But also, he holds his own in the 1v1s. We talked about it. He won his own Royale in 2023, so he's definitely a person to keep an eye for.
Yeah, for a while he was like a kind of junior, and we don't say that in like the derogatory way of like, oh, he's the little brother. Oh, he's so cute. Look at how cute he have a bitch's cheeks. No, in the way of like, here's kinda, and then like, okay, here's kinda junior. He just happens to be a little bit below kinda, but you also saw a lot of kinda's gameplay reflected in Lorez's gameplay as well. They played a lot of twos together, so they kind of came up together at a similar time, although kind of was just a little bit ahead of him in all of that. But yeah, Lorez is a player that I enjoy to watch every time. I enjoy to see him mature as a player. I enjoy to see him mature as a person. I think he's definitely a massive threat in South America that nobody is questioning anymore. Everybody is like, yep, Lorez is here. Lorez is here to stay. If we see Lorez on the podium, we're like, yep, go Lorez. We kind of expected you to be there.
Yeah, and this might be my own personal bias about Lorez, but he kind of has this ability to take out people from other regions that I don't necessarily see. Like, obviously, yes, Yuz, kind of very strong players. You expect them to be able to hold their own against kind of the other regions. But Lorez in particular, people don't always think that way. And then he will sneak in and he'll like double knockout Luna from an event. So Lorez has that ability to really take out names in ways that people aren't always expecting.
Yeah, Lorez, of course, just a little bit of a refresh, came in for the World Championship in 9th place. So right outside of top 8. If I was a betting man, I probably would have put him in my top 8, but he was right on that precipice. We'll see what he has for us this year at the in-person events, either the Royales, the Mid-Season Championship, or of course, Brawlhalla Championship Expo 2024.
It's going to be a good one. All right, Sparky, who's next?
Let's move on to, who's the next one? Let's move on to Yuz, the world champion. Yuz the greatsword that he brought out during the grand finals. I talked about Kaina being the best hammer player in the entire world and being able to do things with hammer in neutral, specifically in 1v1s. Yeah, hammer's great in 2v2s. You can be a little bit more fast and loose with it. Everything doesn't have to be quite as precise. You can kind of flow in and out. You can make some more mistakes. But in 1v1s with hammer, the way that Kaina is able to use that to destroy other players, second to none. But when he ran into, and this is why I said interesting, when he ran into Yuz in the grand finals, Yuz completely dismantled him. Let's bring up that whiteboard so we can maybe show that physically. Toast, can I get the whiteboard?
He's trying to figure out how to do it.
There it is. Okay, so this is Kaina right here. He's got his hammer. Beep, bop, boop.
Okay.
He's got his hammer. Yeah. We're going to go ahead and give you the KYN right here so you know it's Kaina. Apparently my name is Dancing Baboon, which honestly, pretty apt. That's correct.
Handsome.
So we have Kaina right here. When you're thinking about a stomp, one of the main combo starters, one of the main moves that Kaina uses in neutral. All Hammers players use it in neutral, but Kaina uses it better than anybody. You kind of have like this right here, a little bit of stack, but a little bit of this right here. Let me get a different color for hitboxes, right? You got this right here. But use would come in on the other side. We're going to put use in, that's a background color. We're going to put use in orange. We got use right here, and he has his greatsword, which when you do the greatsword side light, you get, that's the handle of the greatsword. This is a giant kitchen knife right here. It's a chef's knife right here. Look at that range that you have. The ability for use, Y-U-Z, the ability for use to stick that out and poke Kaina from a safe distance without having to get anywhere near that hammer D-light. It's Kaina's job to get essentially on top of use and take this little area right here and put it around here, anywhere here. That's what he's really good at doing. He's good at doing it in the air, gravity canceling it. But if you can't get past this, you're stuck. And that's what Kaina struggled to do the entire time. He could not get in on use. He could not get on top of use. He could not use those D-lights to find, of course, the follow-ups, all of the bread and butter, everything that you want to do with Hammer, he couldn't find it.
Yeah, I think Use, of course, is known to be a very strong greatsword player. I think to condense what Sparky said into a form that maybe people who don't like looking at stick figures can understand is just like Use was better at controlling the ground. Both greatsword and hammer kind of need to control the ground, and Use just had a little bit more of that ground control, which made it really hard for Kaina to get the combo starter that, as we all know with hammer players, you want to get that combo starter to get that extra stuff. You want that big side air after the stomp. But I also want to talk about the fact that like Use is kind of this interesting one, because when we talk about Use, we of course have to talk about the greatsword and how well he played with the greatsword at the World Championship. But we also kind of got to talk about the Vector. We got to talk about the fact that like he kind of has this whole second pocket pick that is nothing like his greatsword. The Vector is kind of the thing that really started to put him on the map. That's what he won, I believe, Spring Royale with, and then he won the Dream Hack right afterwards. Like, he was playing this Vector really, really well and doing things that I think a lot of people weren't really thinking about at the time. Then, of course, he's kind of fallen off from that because he's really good with the greatsword as well.
Yeah, he found a successful recipe with the Vector, and then he also found a really even more successful recipe with the Jae-Yun, and I think that is going to inspire maybe some other Jae-Yuns in the region. We could see other greatsword users, but again, specifically like when people are playing greatsword, it's usually the Jae-Yun pick. So I expect to see that influence from Use come out, so we see more greatsword in South America. Of course, probably globally as well, but especially in South America, since they're their own insulated community that is always playing with each other, constantly grinding, constantly doing all of that. So I expect to see some more greatsword because Use has that much of an influence, not unlike Sandstorm with Fenrir Mordex.
I mean, that's kind of what happens, right? Is somebody wins the world championship and then everybody's like, well, I gotta try this character too. If they can
Impala
do it,
and Kaya.
I gotta figure out what's going on there. And it was really interesting, again, kind of going back in time to talk about Use. Is just like, at the time, not a lot of people were thinking about greatsword with the world championship, but then people kind of really started to remember, oh, this is a solid weapon, and we should definitely start putting in some time on that as well. But there's one more person we got to talk about with the South American region. We've talked about 3 so far, but we've got to go for 4. Let's talk about someone who we have not talked about in a really long time, none other than Lopez, someone who Use himself shouted out in his thank you speech at the World Championship. Lopez has been this figure that a lot of the South Americans have been looking for and wanting for that return of, and this is that start, that opportunity for Lopez to come back in 2024.
Yeah, Lopez was banned back in 2021, and ever since then, he's kind of been this specter looming over the South American region. And I'll draw a parallel to another player who was banned, Godly. He was a specter that was flying over EU. Everybody in EU was like, yeah, Acno's good. Yeah, Blaze is good. Some of these other players are good. But Godly, Godly is the best player we have. Not only the best player that we have, but we think he is the best player in the world. Exact same opinions about Lopez in South America. He is the best player that South America has. Not only that South America has, but that the entire world has. So all eyes are going to be on him, especially in the trial of Ymir, just like they were for Godly on his very first Winter Championship, to see how he performs. That's the big question mark, because it's been a minute.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time. It's been like 3 years, 2.5 years since we've seen him play the game. And even if he was somehow able to grind ranked or play or any of that, that's totally different than what we're talking about when you step in the arena of esports.
Well, one thing that is really nice for Lopez in particular is we talked about how Yuza's greatsword did really well. Well, Lopez's peak was when greatsword was kind of the big thing. A lot of people remember when greatsword kind of dominated multiple events. Lopez was one of the biggest greatsword players out there, so might be expecting that to be what he comes back to. Although there are rumors, I believe you said you have your man on the street, your pavement pounder giving you info on what Lopez is playing.
Yeah, I got my young street soldier out here who shall remain nameless to protect my sources, because I am a journalist. Hold on, let me scroll through all of the information that he is regularly sending me. Okay, so in twos, we're expecting an Ada and a Queen Nai. Two interesting choices. One, of course, being extremely low defense that virtually nobody plays. All I'm going to say is it was not that long ago, before recent Blasters nerfs, that I was like, everybody's sleeping on Ada. Me and Sandwich, right here, we're saying everybody's sleeping on Ada. Maybe not in twos, but maybe Lopez gets the Ada pass there. But also a Queen Nai. Very high defense legend. Not a lot of people playing Queen Nai in twos, though there are a few. Then in ones, if we're seeing that Queen Nai, we're also potentially going to see it in ones, which we also don't see very often. But that has the Katars. Okay, who else might we see? One of the most meta Katar legends, the Asuri, coming out. And then not just Katar legends, but a Fate or, ding, 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 Jaehyun.
Okay, pretty solid character pool all around. It'll be interesting. Again, a lot of eyes are on Lopez, not necessarily from outside of the region, but internally. We kind of talked about how you shouted out Lopez, but a lot of the South Americans have kind of put Lopez on this pedestal as this guy who, like, when he is able to break free and start playing again, he's going to be a monster. And so that's going to be the big question, is he going to kick off this year 2024 with an amazing performance similar to how Godly did, or is it going to take him a little bit of ramp up time because he's been out of the game for a little bit? That is going to be the big thing to look out for.
Yeah, his name carries tremendous weight for someone that we haven't seen in a tournament for like 2.5 years. So I'm really stoked to finally see Lopez play again. I'm really curious what he's got for us.
Yeah. It'll be interesting, to say the very least. But of course, we got other regions we got to talk about. Do you wanna pick the next one, Sparky?
Yeah, let's move on to EU and a player that we were just talking about in relation to Lopez. Let's talk about Godly. He finally got his 1v1 LAN victory last year in his home region, although technically the UK is not a part of EU anymore, so we'll just call it Europe. Shout out to the Brexit geezers out there. But 1v1 LAN victory at DreamHack Valencia, that was huge. He'd been searching for that for so long. He wanted that 1v1 victory. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to convert that into a world championship victory. That's sort of the last bastion that he's really searching for, is that 1v1 victory at the world championship.
Yeah, there's kind of two victories that Godly really hasn't quite accomplished yet. We've talked about how he had an amazing time. He was an amazing 1v1er. He's been doing really well in 2v2s. Of course, he's a world champion in 2v2s. He's, of course, been the first person from the European region to win in a 1v1 LAN event, but he hasn't won a Royale, and he hasn't won a world championship in 1v1. So those are going to be the two big things that I think Godly's working for. Part of me thinks that, like, Godly's the type of person to look down the road. He's looking towards the world championship, and everything from here to there is just training to get to that point. But at the same time, I think he wants to get those Royale wins, not only just because it's great practice to be able to go to an event with some of the strongest players around the world, but also because it's, again, one of those few titles he hasn't quite been able to grasp. So I think in particular, Godly's going to be really trying his hardest to make sure he can get to those Royale and get some W's.
He's going to want to come out of the gate strong in trial of Ymir. But one of the things I'm really worried about with him is the mental going into it, because he did kind of get embarrassed on stream very recently when he was riding for Meg D and Radish against Snowy and Hideaway. He was in the voice call with Luna and all of the other people that were in that voice call, and he was talking big game. We've always thought that Godly is like this really smart player, right? Everybody was questioning when he partnered up with Zen. It was like, Zen of all people? But of course, hey, Godly knew he was the smarter one there. He knew how to pick him. But all of a sudden, the calendar year rolls into 2024, and he's here to bankroll Meg D and Radish. I don't know if Godly knows how to pick him anymore. Duke, is my goat washed?
You know, he's not the one. He wasn't the one playing. You know, he might not have the best picks when it comes to who he wants to support. But at the end of the day, it's not the same thing as him being the person to pick who he's playing in game. He's the one who's controlling how he's doing, and he's still kind of that big person in EU. We've talked about how a lot of people look at the European region. Almost all of them are looking specifically at Godly to be that big person. So he can go out there, he can pick whoever he wants to play 2v2s and say, yeah, I'm going to root for that guy. But when it comes time for him to play, it's a whole different thing.
And that's one of the biggest ways that South America and EU kind of differ, right? With Lopez coming back, he now has to contend with Kaina and Hughes, two like world-class champion 1v1ers out there. Whereas when Godly came back, no disrespect to Akno, he's an incredible player, and he carried EU on his back in 1v1 and 2v2 during Godly's ban while he wasn't able to play in those tournaments. But of course, when Godly came back, we saw who the king of EU was. I don't know if Lopez is going to have as easy of a time as Godly did, but of course, with Godly, I love to watch him. He's very fun to see. He's very fun to just be around. There's something magnetic about Godly in the way he plays, the way he carries himself. I really like to see Godly do well this year. I expect Godly to do well this year. Anything less, and I would be surprised.
Yeah, I expect Godly to come out of the gate swinging. I think he's going to be definitely going to try to get the home run. Again, we talk about Europe and all of the stuff that happens with it. They have historically had a lot of trouble having somebody be a dominant force the entirety of the year. We talked about somebody who was kind of the only other challenge for Godly, and that's Akno, the person who stopped his run in 2022, where he beat him in the Autumn Championship. So let's talk about Akno, unless you got something less to say about Godly.
No, let's move right on to Akno. Akno, of course, coming off of a victory from the Bearded Brawl's Winter Warzone just a few weeks ago. He was playing Ragnar, which I was a Ragnar hater before. I'm still a little bit of a Ragnar hater, but I'm starting to believe more in the Ragnar, not just because of the legend itself, but because of what Akno has shown me that he is specifically able to do. Maybe he gets the Ragnar pass, just like Pugsy gets the Jala pass, and Lopez might get the Ada pass. So Akno coming in, I don't know where his mental is. I honestly don't know where his mental is. I would like to talk to him about where his mental is, because he had a good enough year. Yeah, he had a solid year. Last year came in 5th place at the World Championship. Like, he's a very strong player. He's never been bad at the game. He's PR3. Yeah, I would like to see where his head is at after that 5th place finish, after the kind of year where it was more or less in 1v1 Godly's year in the region. The sights were not really set on Akno. Akno and Blaze, of course, didn't have the same performance at the World Championship that they did the year before, where it was like one of the most unforgettable moments in Brawlhalla history. It's not that they were bad last year, it's that it's hard to have another miracle, unforgettable moment that everybody will remember for all of Brawlhalla.
Yeah, Akno, I kind of want to reiterate your point of just like how subdued Akno is. We talk about like
he's chill,
the big personality that Godly brings, but on the other side, Akno, like a lot of the trash talk that comes out around Akno is from other Europeans being like, hello, Akno and Blaze, they're our best 2v2 team. NA, go back to sleep because you're not going to actually be able to beat our guys. You know, like it was
it's from the Glazers.
Yeah, it was the Glazers talking up Akno. Meanwhile, Akno's like, yeah, I'm just gonna play my game. I'm gonna do well. We know he's an axe player. You talked about the Ragnar. We've seen his Bryn time and time again. We've also seen the Koji time and time again. But coming in with the Ragnar, it's an interesting pick. I kind of like it. I've been really liking Katars as of late. So I am interested to see how well this is going to do once we get into the trial of Ymir. But Akno, again, kind of to your point, he's very quiet. You don't really know what's going on. He shows up, does work, and goes home. He just really keeps it straightforward.
Yeah, last year he had a very interesting run because he has strong placements, like, of course, 5th place at the World Championship, but then you look at, like, the Autumn Championship, and he's 17th place. Then you look at the Summer Championship, and he's 3rd. And then you look at DreamHack Valencia, and he's 17th place. So he's kind of up and down. I think it all depends on, like, who he's going to be that day. We used to talk about coin flip players all the time, players like Snowy, where it's like Snowy can either come out of the gate and be one of the best players of all time, or, you know, he's going to be outside of top 16. He's not going to have a very good day. It's going to be a short run through the bracket, and then it's going to be over. Akno has kind of turned into that style of player. So I think you can't really make a prediction for the entire year for Akno, at least not right now. It's going to be like from trial to trial, from royale to royale, event to event. It'll all be like how he is that day.
Yeah. I'll also say when it comes to EU and specifically Akno, I think a lot of the older people like myself, the Brawlhalla boomers, I think we care more about Akno's 2v2s. I think we're going to be really invested in how Akno's going to do. If I'm not mistaken, the Akno Blaze team has dissolved, I think was something that happened over the off season. I don't know if they'll come back together. Of course, 2024 is a long year, but that's the big thing. Akno and Blaze were considered the favorite going into the World Championship. And then, as we talked about, they didn't get the gold medal at the World Championship. So I think a lot of people in particular are going to be very invested in how Akno does in the 2s. Yeah, we know he can be good in 1v1s. He could maybe take out Godly if it's, the sun's in the right spot. But really, it's about the 2s that we're looking at Akno for, at least myself, for.
Yeah, it'll definitely be a fun year for 2s, for Akno, for everybody. It'll also be curious to see, compared to last year, given that this year has more onlines compared to offlines, how he does in that sort of more hybrid environment. It's more of that the split favors more of the online events. So maybe that fires him up. Maybe he really looks forward to those in-person events, or maybe he sees them as more of a social aspect, so he doesn't practice as much for them. All that's up in the air. Again, the esports season hasn't even started yet, but it starts in just a few days. So I'm not going to say all will be revealed, but very, very important things will be revealed from a lot of different players in just a few days.
Yeah, we'll see how the year kicks off. On to the next one, though. Let's talk about Knees. Sparky, what are you going to say about him?
Knees has leveled up. I was a Knees denier for a while because talking about coin flip players, except it was like kind of, I don't want to say it was a rigged coin because it didn't always land tails, but it felt like more times than not, the coin came up tails for Knees. He had some heads sometimes, and those were amazing. And he showed us incredible things. He showed us what he's truly capable of. But coin came up tails too many times for me to put that much weight and that much confidence behind the performance of a player like Knees, until kind of maybe the first third of last year, or maybe midway through last year. He really started to podium more. We were seeing some more consistent performances from him. Some of them didn't extend into every LAN, like his 17th place at DreamHack Valencia, but like he was a regular Royale placer.
Yeah, I'm going to make a very bold call, and it's going to be a very brutal call. And it's Knees is a in-person player. I've seen Knees grow throughout the year. I was like you. I heard more glaze about Knees than I saw performance from Knees.
Dude, everybody was crazy for Knees, and it was blowing my mind.
So I was also like, okay, Knees, yeah, he has moments where he can do really cool. He also will Knees himself. He'll just run off into the sunset and maybe not even take out his opponent with him. So he was kind of this really weird person. But as the Royales happened last year, I started looking at Knees and I'm like, you know what? This is a really strong player, and he's definitely one of the big names for the European region. But this year, we're not going to have an in-person event for the Europeans. The only events that Knees can do in person, mid-season, 2 Royales, and the World Championship. And he has to earn his spot at those Royales. And so I'm a little worried if I'm a Knees fan, because when it was all online, Knees just didn't have that motivation. So I think it's going to be hard. Yes, he has those Royales to work for. Yes, he has 3 out of the 4 that he can do well in and still potentially go to the Royale. But again, I don't think Knees is really an online player. And I could be proven wrong as the year progresses, but just looking at how the previous years without online or without offline events went for Knees, this year might be rough for him.
I'm thinking we see one of 2 Kneeses come out this year. We either see him play solid all the way from the beginning, all the way to the end, show us, reasonable consistency. I'm not talking about top 3s for every single tournament throughout the entire year, every single trial, then the midseason and the Royales, but more great placements than not. Or we see a Knees that, takes a little bit of time to pick up some steam as those events start happening, as we get closer and he realizes, oh, if I want to place at the Royale, or if I want to go to the Royale, I need to do pretty well. Like, he comes out trial of Ymir and struggles, and then he's like, oh, okay, that's my one. That's my one that I can throw in the trash. I need to bring it for the next 3 because I want to go to the Royale. Or as we get closer to the midseason championship, same thing. Oh, all of a sudden, the midseason championship is not like 3 or 4 months away. It's a few weeks away. So I really got to buckle down and do it big at the midseason championship. Or similar, exact same story, and we see him do something really big at the World Championship like he did last year, coming in 5th place after something like a 17th place at the Autumn Championship. So I think he's either reasonably consistent the entire year, or I think he's going to take a little while to build up that steam.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think the of the people we are talking about today, Knees has the most potential to have a very rough start to 2024, and we'll see if he can bring it back up. But we got one more person we got to talk about for the European region. Also, got to remind everyone, we've talked about the midseason championship, that in-person event. Y'all can sign up, start.gg/CEO, and also get your hotels. You can book it. We've already talked about the midseason championship. It's going to be at CEO, so you have no excuse besides the fact that you're maybe trying to save up money to go there, but you can plan now. You can start figuring out what you're going to do to get to CEO. But let's talk about one more European. Let us talk about Escrape. Escrape, kind of that sleeper who came in 2024, started to show up for the European region. Sparky, what do you want to say about him?
Escrape's really interesting because I am still an Escrape denier. And this is something that he and I have spoken about at almost virtually every event last year that we were at together, because everyone was like, oh, Escrape, meteoric rise, Spring Championship 2023, 2nd place, he's incredible, he's next up. And I was like, all right, wait, hold on, ayo, pause, hold, all the stuff that the Zoomers say to get you to slow down. I am someone that needs to be proven. So then 5th place, DreamHack Valencia. All right, okay. All right, maybe I'm giving Escrape a little bit more credit here. Summer Championship, 2nd place, okay. Maybe I need to really think of Escrape as a threat here, but then all of a sudden, he starts to slow down towards the latter half of the year. Autumn Championship, 17th place. Again, I'm not saying he's bad. Things could have come up. Maybe he just had a tough day. It happens. Then at the World Championship, 17th place. Specifically at Worlds, I expected quite a bit better from him. I expected him to be like around that top 8, maybe not inside of the top 8, but maybe coming in at like a 9th place finish, maybe right inside top 8, tying for 7th there. But he struggled at the World Championship, relatively speaking, for how we expected him to play after a really strong 2023.
Yeah. Escrape he's interesting in that, like, if you're trying to figure out who you want to talk about for 1v1s for the European region, you're not necessarily wrong with talking about Scrape, but it's also like, is there someone else that you could talk about with Scrape? And I think Scrape is one of those people who deserves to be talked about. He showed how well Orion can work, but I also think that Scrape struggled when Orion kind of got hit with the nerfs, and that's when he was like, what do I do? He switched to Tesca, and I actually really like Scrape's Tesca, but at the same time, it just wasn't the same. I think when he hit that character crisis, that's when we started to see him crumble a little bit more. But if he finds that footing, if he finds that thing that sticks, and if it manages to stick throughout all of 2024, I think Scrape's a really strong 1v1er for the region.
I think you're exactly right. He, of course, deserves to be in the conversation about when we're talking about the top players in the region of the upper echelon. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. He needs to do one of two things. He either needs to find the spot that fits him. And I mean, like, if you're wearing a shoe and you have a size 9 foot, then you want more or less a size 9 shoe because that fits your foot. Or what you need to do is find whatever shaped hole that you can fit yourself into and maybe change yourself just a little bit to find your way fitting into that box, like a cat. If it fits, I sits. Even if the box is small, the cat can contort itself and turn itself into that tiny loaf to fit inside that box. Maybe that box is not the perfect fit for the cat, but the cat can find a way to fit inside that box. Let's talk about LeBron's feet for a second.
Okay, yeah, no, you used to keep going. You got this.
There's that viral picture of LeBron's feet that came out maybe in the past week. I think it's like him on the beach or something, and it shows his like I don't know how his pinky toe migrated to where his pinky toe is, but it's like this is what LeBron's feet look like after the years and years and years of playing basketball, right? That's the shape. That's the perfect shape that his feet needed to become for him to be the GOAT of basketball. He couldn't do it with the normal shaped feet that regular humans have, right? He had to change his body to become the GOAT.
Okay. I really thought you were gonna go with he has to create his own space to fit that fits for him, but you know, your thing works too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think a lot of people are going to be thinking about this for
Sandwick knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Sandwick knows. Sandwick, he knows what I'm talking about.
Sandwick's nodding right now.
He's seen the picture. He knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we got 9 minutes left on the clock. We got to talk about North America. We can't spend too much time on this. I'm sorry, North America. You know, you're my favorite region, but let's get into it. Let's talk about the guy who, you know, if you talk about North America and you talk about Brawlhalla, you talk about 1v1s, we got to talk about him. Let's talk about Sandstorm. What you got?
Experience said that like peak Sandstorm is right now.
Oh, okay.
Which honestly, I don't agree with. I don't quite agree with that. Although he probably knows better. Like the logic part of my brain is like, well, you know, Experience probably knows better. But there's another part of my brain that's like, there's no way, dude. You remember how dominant he was, man? Come on, there's no way. Everything was on his side. He was so confident with everything. But Sandstorm, he ended the year so strong. 4th place in the World Championship. Can you, like, that's insane. Saying that if you went at the beginning of last year and you're like, he is going to be the highest placing North American at the World Championship, I would have been like, okay, dude, yeah, that's Sandstorm effect, bro. You're a fan. Just relax. That's fan behavior. Okay, yeah, he's the GOAT. I get it. But like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think the analogy that you kind of remind me of is the whole like peak Kobe versus peak LeBron versus peak Michael Jordan, that kind of question. And what often happens is people go, it was a different game. It was a different time during those things. And so the legacy that Sandstorm had at that time, yes, was impressive, but it is a different game. The caliber of players coming out of South America, coming out of EU, and coming out of North America, completely different. And still Sandstorm manages to hold his own. The big thing for me as a Sandstorm believer is when is he going to get back to that legacy? When is he going to start that new dynasty of winning everything? Because people want that. They want to see Sandstorm back on top. They saw him fall off. Now we got to see him get back on the horse and ride into the sunset and do it with style. That's what we're waiting for.
I think we are kind of in that moment right now. And I think the only reason that we don't have more information is because his like momentum that he had was kind of, I don't want to say cut off, but like we had to take a break because we're in off season, and that's just the way things work. But if you look at what he was doing towards the latter like third of last year, starting in January, February, July, he was playing in community tournaments regularly. July 7th, July 16th, July 30th, August 13th, August 20th. Like, he's coming out. He's not just like, oh, I'm big man on campus. I'll come out for the winter championship and then I'll sleep. And then I'll come out for the spring championship. Like, no, he's playing these community tournaments. He's winning these community tournaments. He's coming out on these Friday nights and being like, yep, I'm practicing because I'm practicing for the world championship where he got 4th place. I think now is probably his best chance after that 4th place and after what he was doing in community tournaments at the end of last year. Now is his best chance to get his best placement ever. And technically it's the trial of Ymir, not the winter championship, but the first tournament of the esports season.
Yeah, I was also going to bring up that he historically does terrible in the first tournament of the year.
Okay, not terrible.
I'm just saying he has not won the first.
It's not a Sandstorm placement that he gets in. Well, it simultaneously is and isn't a Sandstorm placement.
But we're running out of time. We got about 5 minutes left, so yep. I'm gonna keep it short. Let's go in. Meg D, you hate him. Let's go.
I don't hate Meg D. I like Meg D quite a lot. I think he's a great person. I want to give Meg D and Radish a lot of credit for engaging in the beef with Snowy and Hideaway and putting themselves out there like they did yesterday, because that takes a lot of guts to be in a potentially embarrassing situation. So I want to give them a lot of credit for that. They did not have to do that, and I think that's very impressive. Snowy himself gave respect to both of them for doing that. That being said, I've been getting recommended Snowy YouTube shorts recently. He is not nice to Meg D in his YouTube shorts. He says that Meg D and also Radish, since we happen to mention him, they ruin 1v1 for him. Playing against them is so miserable. And that is a weapon that Meg D is able to wield pretty much unlike anybody else in Brawlhalla. He will grind the game down to a halt. He will make you play his game. It's domain expansion, but everything's just like kind of slow and boring. I don't know what that domain would be called. I know it's not infinite void, because that's like a lot of information entering your brain. Yeah. It's like the opposite. It's finite void.
Yeah. I think to a lot of people, Meg D is kind of a villain, and it's not necessarily just players. He's a villain to viewers as well. There's a lot of people who they're like, oh, Meg D set, snooze. But at the same time, I always give Meg D credit, because not only is he doing something that basically no one else is doing, he's succeeding with it. He's playing to win at his own game, and he's doing really, really well in the sense that, like, people know how Meg D is going to come in with his sword, with the Val, with the Asuri, but yet they still can't really figure out what to do against him consistently. I do love Meg D in 2s as of late, but in 1v1s, he has been a villain to a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's not. Look, I don't want to say that he's always slow, always boring, because he has a lot of great sets. We've seen a lot of really exciting sets from him. And, you know, Meg D has some really good sets when you don't have someone in your ear like a gold player telling you, oh, he's passive, oh, he's boring. He has his boring games. We also have to give credit where credit is due. Meg D can come out of the gate and swing his sword, swing the gauntlets. He can play the game. He can flat out play the game. And it's like getting mad at Floyd Mayweather for being a defensive boxer. It's like, okay, get mad at him. He's still like an incredible boxer. He is still like one of the generational talents of boxing.
Okay. Let's go on over to Luna now. Of course, if you know esports, you know me, you know I absolutely adore Luna. I want Luna to succeed. But he got injured at the end of 2023, and he started to fall off. He started to struggle. We didn't see him do too well. After the World Championship, the first thing I said when I talked to him was like, bro, take a break. rest up and heal and hit 2024 hard. And I'm hoping he took those words to heart, but he's still streaming. He's still playing the game. So I don't know how much rest he's actually put in to make sure that he is properly healed for 2024.
I think that the wrist issue, whatever's going on with his hand, that's the biggest question mark. Because I think if the wrist isn't good and he goes into Trial of Ymir and he doesn't perform, then that's going to crash the mental. I don't think the mental will crash on its own. I think the mental will crash because the injury affects his performance at Trial of Ymir, and then we see the sort of low Luna come out where it's rough placement after rough placement, him saying, man, I need to take a break. Doesn't take a break. Man, I need to take a break. I got to get my wrist healed, and then he's not able to do that. So that's really the only thing I'm looking at with Luna, because we know he's good. Yeah. There's no question in any of our minds whether or not he's good. It's all about how that wrist is, and then how that affects the performance that then affects the brain.
Yeah. Is the wrist injury going to be something that like weighs on him? And even if it's completely healed, is it going to be in the back of his head? Like, man, maybe I shouldn't go hyper aggressive here because it could potentially like tweak the wrist. It is going to be a big question, but we've got one last person and 1 minute. What do you guys say about Java?
Java's really good. I know we have an important announcement that we have to make that is like time-based in less than a minute. Java's really good. He's very good at 1v1s. He's very good at 2v2s. His Hattori is incredible. I love watching Java play. He's great.
Yeah, Java's super fun. Want to see him back on the board bar, but honestly, his Hattori's been looking really good. I'm interested to see how this year goes for him, because I don't think he's been the representative for North America too often at the Royales. But once again, he's definitely a really strong player, and I am excited to see him in the 2v2 space. But we are coming up on time, so let's talk about the Battle Pass reveal that is going to be happening in just a little bit. Twitter.com/AJ Moore, 2 R's, 2000, and you're going to see what AJ Moore has to show off for Battle Pass season 9. Is that where we're on?
I don't know. Y'all made it.
Apocalypse. I know it's Apocalypse. Is it season? It's season 9. That's so convenient that Battle Pass season 9 and Esports year 9 are like lining up. I thought that was like me just remembering only one number.
That's pretty crazy, and it's convenient. So make sure to go to that account right now. I'm sure mods are spamming that in chat. That is the next reveal for the Battle Pass. Of course, that is coming from AJ Moore, who everybody knows and loves as the CEO of Moose Wars, one of the BCTI community partners that is putting on the trials this year.
Yeah, give lots of love. Thank you all for watching. If you have opinions on what we had to say, well, you can hit us up on Twitter or hit us up, as of course the Trials of Ymir will probably have a pre-show. It'll start off on Friday, not the pre-show, but the Trials of Ymir with, of course, Mina on Friday. You don't want to miss it. Any final words we got to say, Sparky or Toast?
Brawlhalla.com/schedule. If you want to get in on community tournaments, start.gg/BH community. If you want to look at official tournaments as well, start.gg/Brawlhalla. If you want to sign up for CEO, do that ahead of time, because it's a big fighting game tournament. So there's lots of people. It's not just Brawlhalla. So it's going to be tough to get hotels that are close to the venue. Start.gg/CEO so that you can sign up for that. You can book hotels right now. I think that is it.
Yeah, CEO is
Brawlhalla.com/Battle Pass.
So do it. Oh yeah, Brawlhalla.com/Battle Pass. All right, that's everything. Thank you all for watching. We'll see y'all this weekend with Esports, and of course, we got more Brawlhalla content this week. Have a nice day, y'all. Bye.